This is way tougher than we could have ever anticipated coming into the season for the Montreal Canadiens, as now with the trade deadline looming, the talks are no longer just about Montreal being sellers, but there have now been many talks about them potentially being buyers, and there's a lot of players, but one in particular that plays a key role in this, along with the management, Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton. We got to dive into all of that. Plus, we have a little note on Ivan Demidov and how some rival executives see him fitting on Montreal from day one. It's pretty surprising. We're going to get into all of that coming up on this episode of Habs Digest. But just one little thing before we start the video, guys. It's a new year, new Habs Digest. We got some big things planned. The only thing I'm asking for you guys is a little New Year's present. Leave a like on the video. We got content every single day. If you enjoy what we do, one simple like means the world to us. Let's talk about Demidov, Jesse. Our boy, Demigod. This guy... Look, it just gets better and better every day. Now, Eric Engels did a little article that I'll link down below, and I suggest you go read it about 3 things Montreal's looking forward to in the new year. And the number one thing he put is Demidov's arrival in North America. And at the Board of Governor meetings in early December, there was an executive who brought up Demidov's name unsolicited, saying he's a bona fide superstar who will arrive in Montreal and immediately make an impact. And then he went on to say that it wouldn't take long for the Russian Dynamo to become the Canadiens' best player if he didn't immediately start on that foot by next fall. What are your thoughts on this whole thing, Jesse? I know we're excited about Demidov, and you know what? I think I'm on board with Eric Engels saying this is probably the number one thing I'm looking forward to in 2025.
Because his contract's over in just a couple months, and Ivan Demidov will come in, and he's going to be giving Patrik Laine a run for his money right away of most skilled players. But we know we're excited with Demidov more than just the points, about being the complete player, a la Nick Suzuki, who, along with Cole Caufield, are projected to become point per game players. So the fact, this is huge praise from an Eastern Conference exec saying that, Ivan Demidov basically from day one has the opportunity to come and be better than all the rest of these guys, which is absolutely phenomenal. But if we look at the skill, that complete game, it's for sure there's going to be a little bit of an adjustment period. But I honestly see Ivan Demidov just hitting the ground running, that work ethic that he has. He's just been waiting to get to Montreal. He's just been motivated being on the bench so much in the KHL. He's just been stirring, getting ready to kind of come to Montreal when the time is right. Him with Patrik Laine is going to be absolutely phenomenal. But what's going to help Ivan Demidov maybe be the best version of himself, maybe the best player on the Habs, is the fact that this team is going to be better by the time that he gets here. And this is just going to help lock his game so much. Skilled players need those other skilled players to kind of work together. But obviously, when we're talking about Hudson, we're talking about Demidov, Laine, we can't forget about Slav, but Cole, Nick, just an amazing combination of players here where we really start to see that exciting nucleus that we're really building around for years and years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's a guy who's already one of the best players in the KHL, the reigning rookie of the month. And when he gets minutes, Jesse, we see him. He's a point per game player in games where he gets at least 14 minutes. Basically, I think he's 1 point below. But I don't think it's a stretch to say he could be that most skilled player. Exactly. On day one when he gets to the Habs. And look, I don't want to set too high of expectations for him, but at the same time, I kind of do, because he's genuinely shown that much promise. I don't think it's a point at this point, Jesse, of us overhyping a guy who doesn't deserve it. It's us giving us the rightful hype to a guy that looks like he will be a game changer for this franchise that is already starting to turn their fortunes around. There was a lot of great stuff, things to love about Demidov, a lot of other great stuff coming in the new year. Again, take a look at Eric Engels' article. It's great. Talk about Hudson, Caufield, Suzuki, all that good stuff. But there's some other stuff that we got to get into, Jesse, because not only is Demidov coming, it's going to happen later in this year, though. There's going to be some other changes probably before he comes as well. And the most soon thing, I suppose, is this trade deadline. And as we talk about Montreal coming into the season, we fully expected to be sellers. We fully expected probably another lottery pick. And as of right now, that is where it sort of stands. But there have been some talks, Jesse, of Montreal maybe not just being a seller, but some people even suggesting they could even be buyers. Now, this is an article from Blaine Podfan that I will link down below as well. It said the Habs are finally healthy for more than a week, and now they're in the mix. As GM Kent Hughes had hoped for at the start of the season, they're 3 points outside the final wildcard spot as of the recording of this video. This is before the Ottawa game on January 2nd, so that may change things if Ottawa wins or loses in overtime. But Montreal's still not expected to make the playoffs. It may be time for management to rethink their approach. And if we look at the standings, Jesse, I just wanted to throw this out there, spitball a little bit. At what point does Montreal just not sell at all, right? Because I know we want to get maximum value for guys like Armia, Savard. We don't need to talk about them right now. I think those guys are still as good as gone, even if we're in the mix. But there's other guys on this roster that, maybe you consider moving if we're really far out of the mix, but you don't even think about moving if we're closer to the mix. I mean, at this point, I think they've shown enough to say that it's not crazy for them to stay in the hunt the rest of the way. It's a small sample size, but as you can see here, they have the longest active win streak in the Eastern Conference. They're tied for the best record in the East over their last 10 games. is it insane to think Montreal could even buy a little bit?
Not at all. What's so interesting is like we've been speaking about Matheson, like should he stay, should he go? And we know that like bringing in Alexander Carrier, like he's not a guy that's pairing with Mike Matheson, but somehow Josh, he's just affected the play of Mike Matheson so much. It's this whole trickle down, and I'm okay with keeping this player if we're in the mix, if he's playing the system, and that's the big thing. That's what he's been doing of late, and we want to see Mike Matheson succeed. I've just been so happy to actually see him playing well, kind of playing that safer game, knowing where his coverage is at, because this is the ideal world where this player brings a lot, but obviously, we're going back a couple weeks. If there's a lot of giveaways, a lot of different things, like we're talking about, like Matheson's future with the Montreal Canadiens, as of not long ago, was very much up in the air. But I'm of the opinion, Josh, where like if we're in the mix, I know what happened with the Buffalo Sabres. Like if you're getting close, if you have that chance, you want to make that play to be competitive in the playoffs. We know that like Savard and Armia, like there are certain things you need to do, but I feel like the Montreal Canadiens, they're going to be a combination, like not just being sellers. I think the buying's more going to be like for the offseason, but I think they won't be afraid to kind of like, maybe keep an Evans. Definitely if we're in the mix, keep a Matheson if we're in the mix there, because they really want to strengthen and really reward this team right now, which I feel is the right decision.
Yeah, I think so too. Like, again, we've talked so long about Savard and Armia, but like, those are guys you add if you're going for a cup run, right? Like, those are the guys you keep around if that's what you're doing. But if you just want to be in the mix and you want to play winning hockey, those guys can somewhat be replaced. And while, yes, they're very important to the team, I feel like they're not going to make a massive difference to the team if you lose them and replace them with something else. Then again, I don't know, because replacing Justin Barron with Alex Carrier has made a big effect. So there's so many questions that go on with this, Jesse. It's very dynamic, but I think the Mike Matheson point you brought up is a fantastic one. Is Kent Hughes is going to have a lot of decisions to make, because Matheson's one of these guys that is not just on the contract for this year. He's not expiring. We have him next year at a very reasonable cap hit. As I just showed a minute ago, he's on pace for well over 40 points again this season. Back to back, I think 40 plus point season. Last year was a lot more than 40. It was in the 60s, but Mike Matheson's name has been floating around everywhere, and he's one of these guys that's going to command probably one of the bigger trade packages on Montreal of guys that could theoretically be traded. His name was thrown around by Pierre Lebrun, I believe, right? About a guy who could get moved. And we even have articles coming out of the Lightning, the Hockey News Lightning. This will also be linked down below, saying the Lightning should make a big push for the Canadian star. Lightning have an interesting player worth targeting, and Michael DeRosa said Mike Matheson is that guy. When looking at the Habs roster, he could slot in perfectly on the top pairing with Victor Hedman. He is puck moving. He can even play on the right side. He'd be a clear option for their power play. When it comes to Matheson, Jesse, one of the big things I wanted to mention too is his defensive uptick since Carrier's been here. And you mentioned Matheson's been able to play in the system, and I wanted to specifically highlight one little thing. Number one, he's on the first penalty kill, but I checked today. I actually don't have the screenshot to back this up. I hope you guys can trust me, or go check for yourself on Money Puck. Just he's second in the entire NHL in takeaways, behind only Jacob Slavin, who was a notoriously very solid defenseman for the Carolina Hurricanes. Second in the whole league in takeaways is very, very impressive. He's been thriving with Montreal as an offensive and defensive force. And I would say, even though he's not going to be on pace for that 60-plus point season, the fact that he's on pace for 45-ish, plus now being a reliable defensive player and a guy who's no longer a liability in his own zone, is just going to entice more teams to trade for him. So it's like, I don't know. I feel like I'm of so many minds about this, but like, he's so important to Montreal, but like, I just can't help but wonder if his trade value is just going to keep skyrocketing since this Carrier move has helped him so much.
Absolutely. But being a vet on this team is what makes him so valuable. And as you know, Josh, like I haven't been afraid to call out Matheson if I feel like he's not playing well. But like, I'm happy to see him doing well, not to be rude, but just, wanting what's right for this team. Of just, we see those same mistakes kind of being done. But if that's not happening, we're going to give the man a little bit of love. And obviously, because like that mobility is amazing. Like, we know what he can do on the ice, right? Like, we know all the amazing things that he brings. It's just about sometimes buying into that system a lot more, which, seems to be part of it as well right now, which is a big thing. We definitely want it to keep going. But like, if we could have a Matheson who brings it offensively, but is, obviously they're, like responsible defensively as well, which is always the biggest caveat. That's the big thing. But, with the Montreal Canadiens, why, I think that Kent Hughes will want to do right by this team is like, we just had our best month ever under Martin St. Louis. And, this team is winning is winning, is healthy rather, so it's winning games right now. So it just goes to show, like, it's saying, if you really keep this team together, you're going to give them a shot to really make something happen, which really speaks, to keeping Matheson around right now, which I really think if we can make this situation work out, will be the best for the Montreal Canadiens in the long term.
Oh, it's so crazy to hear, like, oh man, it feels like I'm rebounding back and forth between so many ideas in my head every day, but that's what makes it so fun to do this channel, to talk about the Habs, to listen to fans, to think about this team, Jesse. This is one of the most exciting times I can remember, not just the outlook of the future, but even in the now. Who should be extended? Who should be moved? Who should stay? Who should go? What's going to happen here and there? It's unbelievable. I want to hear all your guys' thoughts down below, because we could go on like this for minutes, for hours, for days, honestly, but we got to stop there, because that'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest. But if you enjoyed, leave a like down below. It's all I ask. We really appreciate all your support every single day, and my gosh, I can't wait to see what comes next. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host, Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.